I need to see you try something. Pull out your phone right now and open your camera app. Don't take a picture, just hold it up and look at yourself on the screen. Notice what happens to your face, your posture, the way you breathe. You just shifted into performance mode without even realizing it. And that split-second transformation reveals everything wrong with how we live now. Your brain wasn't designed for this. When you sense eyes on you, even the lens of your own phone, your neural circuitry kicks into what researchers call heightened social evaluation mode. It's closer to fight or flight than normal consciousness. Your prefrontal cortex starts burning extra glucose as it calculates. How do I look? What will they think? Should I smile more? Less? Your anxiety spikes. Your self-monitoring intensifies. And here's the disturbing part. This isn't happening occasionally anymore. For millions of people, especially Gen Z, this is the default state of existence. The camera is always there, waiting. The performance never ends. Before we go further, do me a favor and subscribe to this channel. What I'm about to break down affects every single person watching this video, whether you're 15 or 50, and the only way to make sense of the madness is to understand the invisible systems rewiring your identity. Hit that button so you don't miss what's coming. Let's talk about what it means to grow up recorded. If you were born before 1995, you probably have entire years of your childhood that exist only in memory. Embarrassing moments that faded, experimental phases that stayed private, mistakes that didn't follow you. But Gen Z never had that luxury. They've been filmed since infancy, baby videos uploaded to Facebook, toddler tantrums on Instagram stories, middle school cringe immortalized on TikTok. Their identity formation, that fragile process of figuring out who you are, happened under constant documentation. Psychologists studying adolescent development have found that when your formative years are spent performing for an audience, your sense of self becomes fractured. You don't develop one coherent identity. You develop multiple competing versions, each optimized for a different platform, each slightly incompatible with the others. Older generations feel this pressure too, but they remember what it was like before. They have a baseline of unobserved existence to compare against. They know what it feels like to have an hour, a day, a weekend where nobody was watching. Gen Z doesn't. They've internalized what scholars call the digital panopticon. That's borrowed from philosopher Michel Foucault's concept of a prison where inmates never know if they're being watched, so they police their own behavior constantly. Social media works the same way. You don't need someone actively filming you. The possibility is enough. Your brain starts regulating itself as if the camera is always running, even when you're alone in your room. This creates something psychologists call context collapse. Normally, you present different versions of yourself in different contexts. You act one way with your parents, another with your friends, another at work. Each version is authentic, just contextually appropriate. But social media flattens all those audiences into one undifferentiated mass. Your boss sees the same posts as your grandmother, your high school acquaintances, your potential romantic interests, and random strangers. Your brain has no idea who it's performing for anymore, so it defaults to the most sanitized, least offensive, carefully curated version of you. The private self collapses. What's left is a brand. And here's where it gets sinister. We've stopped living life. We're performing it. Think about the last time you went somewhere beautiful, or ate something delicious, or spent time with someone you love. What percentage of that experience did you spend thinking about how to document it, figuring out the angle, the caption, the timing of the post? Research on self-presentation shows that when people feel their online persona is inauthentic, when there's a gap between who they are and who they're pretending to be, it correlates with lower self-esteem and worse mental health outcomes. But the alternative, being genuinely authentic online, feels impossible because you're still performing for that collapsed audience. You can't win. Gen Z talks endlessly about being real online. They gravitate toward platforms like Be Real that promise unfiltered, spontaneous sharing. But studies of these platforms reveal something darkening. Users still curate. They still retake photos. They still wait for better moments. Even the performance of authenticity is a performance. The quest for realness has become another exhausting act. Some researchers now describe this as a crisis of self-presentation. The more your audiences collapse together, the less you know who you're performing for, so you optimize for an imaginary average viewer who doesn't actually exist. The mental toll is measurable. A 2022 meta-analysis of problematic social media use found statistically significant correlations between heavy platform engagement and elevated depression, anxiety, and stress in young adults. Another systematic review of nearly 32 studies covering roughly 19,600 adolescents found that active social media participation correlates with both identity exploration and identity distress. That's a polite way of saying being constantly on display scrambles your sense of who you are. Social comparison, highlight reel culture, and performance mode posting don't just make you feel bad in the moment. They fundamentally alter your self-concept over time. You develop what I'll call the always on brain. You're never fully present because part of your consciousness is always monitoring, always aware that anything could become content. You're at dinner with friends, but you're also composing the caption. You're having a private moment of joy, but you're also framing it for an audience. Neuroscientists studying attention have found that this kind of split focus depletes cognitive resources. Your working memory suffers. Your ability to form deep memories weakens. You're living in two realities simultaneously, and neither one gets your full attention. Then there's the paranoia. Not clinical paranoia, but a low-grade, constant awareness that you might be in someone else's content without knowing it. Studies on surveillance and perception note that feeling like an object of attention changes how you perceive your environment. You become hypervigilant. Your brain shifts into an overactive social threat mode even when there's no actual audience in the room. Walk into a gym and you're wondering if someone's filming you for a cringe compilation. Sit in a coffee shop and you're aware you might be in the background of someone's vlog. Exist in public and you're a potential extra in someone else's narrative with no control over how you're portrayed. This brings us to one of the darkest aspects of recording culture: weaponized visibility. Hypervisibility doesn't just make you anxious, it makes you a target. We've all seen the videos. Someone films a stranger at the gym, accuses them of being creepy, and posts it to millions of people. The accused person, who was often doing nothing wrong, gets doxxed, harassed, and sometimes loses their job. Later, when the truth comes out, when it turns out the filmer misinterpreted an innocent interaction, the damage is already done. Surveys reveal that 1 in 10 gym goers admit to filming someone else without permission. Most claim they're documenting harassment or weird behavior, but the reality is murkier. People film others to create content, to get views, to participate in the outrage economy. The same pattern plays out everywhere. Pranks channels film unsuspecting people, edit the footage to make them look foolish, and monetize their humiliation. TikTokers record strangers on public transit, in stores, at fast food jobs, turning random people into memes without consent. If you react, you're the villain. If you don't react, you're still the punchline. And if the video goes viral, your face is now permanently associated with whatever narrative the creator imposed on you. Research on creators and hypervisibility shows that intense exposure brings harassment, doxing, and malicious reporting, especially for marginalized groups. But now that risk isn't limited to creators. Anyone can become hypervisible against their will. The envy economy makes this worse. Social media runs on comparison. You see someone's highlight reel and compare it to your behind the scenes. They're on vacation. You're at work. They're celebrating a promotion. You're struggling to pay rent. They look effortlessly beautiful. You feel inadequate. Meta studies confirm what you already know intuitively. Curated feeds trigger social comparison, envy, and lower well-being. But here's the twist. The people you're envying are often miserable too. They're trapped in the same performance, terrified that if they show weakness or authenticity, they'll lose their audience. Success makes you a target. The more visible you become, the more people want to see you fail. There's a perverse pleasure in watching someone who seemed perfect get exposed, humiliated, or canceled. Hypervisible success invites resentment, but hypervisible failure becomes entertainment. You can't win. Stay small and invisible. You're irrelevant. Grow your platform. You're a narcissist. Stumble publicly, you're a punchline. The only way to avoid the trap is to opt out entirely, but opting out feels like social suicide in a world where visibility equals existence. Marginalized communities feel this most acutely. Research on LGBTQ+ youth shows that perceived audience heterogeneity, the awareness that your followers include potentially hostile people, reduces the frequency and authenticity of identity expression. They self-censor constantly. They adjust posts to avoid judgment or unwanted outing. One wrong post can expose them to harassment or endanger their safety. Scholars now talk about strategic invisibility, the deliberate choice to limit visibility as a form of self-protection. For these groups, being unrecorded isn't a privilege, it's survival. And yet, the platforms push everyone toward maximum visibility. This is where surveillance capitalism enters the picture. Researcher Shoshana Zuboff argues that companies have built an economy around capturing behavioral data and shaping behavior to maximize engagement and profit. Your attention is the product. Your behavioral patterns are the raw material. The platforms reward people who turn themselves into content machines, who post constantly, who optimize their personalities like marketing campaigns. In earlier eras, visibility was reserved for celebrities. Now the average 15-year-old has an audience larger than some TV shows had in the 1980s, and that's treated as normal. The business model demands it. Platforms need you performing, posting, and staying engaged. They need you comparing yourself to others so you'll scroll longer. They need you feeling inadequate so you'll buy the products advertised between posts. They need you hooked. Research on social media as surveillance shows how everyday sharing becomes a form of mutual monitoring, where visibility is currency but also a risk. You're not just the product, you're also the unpaid labor force generating content that keeps everyone else hooked. This is why normal people start thinking of themselves as brands. You're not just living your life, you're managing a personal brand across multiple platforms. You're a B testing captions. You're analyzing engagement metrics. You're pivoting your content strategy based on what performs well. Critical introductions to social media point out how platform capitalism pushes this mindset, turning identity into a business and relationships into networking opportunities. It's exhausting, but if you stop, you risk becoming invisible. And in a world where visibility equals existence, invisibility feels like death. So what do? How do you exist in a world where everything is recorded and nothing is private? Some researchers point towards strategic invisibility as a positive counter move. You deliberately choose what not to share. You protect parts of your identity from public view. You create separate spaces for different audiences instead of letting them collapse together. Studies show that when people can separate audiences, when they share certain aspects of themselves only with supportive groups, they feel freer and more authentic. You can also redefine authenticity. Gen Z research suggests they're trying to move toward closer alignment between online and offline selves while still keeping some things private. Authenticity doesn't mean showing everything. It means the things you do show are genuine, not performances optimized for an algorithm. Mental health guidance highlights the importance of reducing near constant social media exposure, protecting sleep, and creating unobserved time. Those are key protective factors, especially for young people whose brains are still developing. Think of it this way: being unrecorded is not being irrelevant. It's being sovereign over your own narrative. You decide what gets documented. You control who sees what. You reclaim the private self that social media tried to collapse. Not everything needs to be content. Not every moment needs an audience. Some experiences are richer when they exist only in memory, unmediated by a screen. The psychological research is clear. When people feel their online self is authentic rather than performative, they have higher self-concept clarity and better mental health outcomes. When they use platforms for genuine connection rather than comparison and validation seeking, social media can actually support identity development. The tool itself isn't the enemy. The way we've been conditioned to use it is start small. Next time you do something you'd normally document, try just experiencing it. Notice the urge to pull out your phone. Sit with it. Let it pass. See what happens when you're fully present instead of performing. You might feel anxious at first. Your always-on brain will protest. But over time, you'll remember what it feels like to live unobserved. And once you remember, you'll realize how much you've been missing. The generation growing up recorded is starting to push back. They're creating private accounts. They're using disappearing messages. They're choosing platforms that prioritize intimacy over virality. They're recognizing that the performance is optional, that they can exist without an audience, that their worth isn't measured in views or likes, but the cultural pressure is enormous. The platforms are designed to exploit your psychology. Your peers are still performing. Opting out feels like defiance. Maybe that's exactly what it needs to be. Not a quiet retreat, but an active resistance. A refusal to let your identity be flattened into content. A commitment to protecting the parts of yourself that don't perform well, that aren't photogenic, that can't be summarized in a caption. Those are often the most important parts. The messy, complicated, contradictory aspects of your personality that make you human. They don't belong on a highlight reel. They belong in the private spaces you create and defend. So here's the real question. Can you exist without performing? Can you have an experience without thinking about how it will look to others? Can you be someone when nobody's watching? Because if you can't, if your sense of self only exists in relation to an audience, then you've already lost something essential. And getting it back starts with the simplest, most radical act you can perform, putting down the camera and living your life like it's yours alone.